Thank you for joining me. Okay, so in our last installment, Rich Elliott, Director of Campus Operations at Park Street Church. I am super glad to have you guys all here today. This is round two. If you recall, last time you were here, we got a chance to walk up to the top of the steeple, and now we're going to go see some of the secrets of Park Street Church. We're going to take a little tour through the buildings, and we'll discuss a little bit about the history and some interesting things. One thing I just want to show you guys as you're all looking around, this is a space where we normally meet for coffee. There's no coffee here. Andrew Swenson is painting though. We are currently just trying hard to keep everything fresh painted. We want everyone to come back as soon as possible, but we're not using this time idly. We're really doing this to kind of buckle down and make sure that a lot of the projects that we can get done around here can get done so that everything really looks wonderful.
Hey Rich.
Yes, Andrew.
Did you know photons have mass?
Photons have mass? I didn't even know they were Catholic. Anyways, that's the first joke for the day, and all my jokes today are going out courtesy of Julie Boyd. Wherever you are, you're the one who I'm telling them to. So we're going to walk around a little bit. We're going to go downstairs, and we're going to go up to the sanctuary. So follow me. And as we do, I'm just going to say thank you so much for the person behind the camera, which is Greg Bannerman, who has been doing this and a lot of other technological things as we've been going through this whole time. Like I said, I'm going to put you guys through your paces right now. There are some areas of Park Street Church that I'm sure that you don't really ever know that you've been in. And some of them have exotic names like Tomb and Boutique and Crypt. Right now we're just going to start off in the Crypt. Don't get your hopes up, it's not as exciting as all of that. Although for a good 50 or so years, the area below the sanctuary was actually used for the storage of dead bodies. Those bodies were taken out, I think it was the semi-centennial of Park Street Church, and then they were reinterred at the Mount Auburn Cemetery. So, but first of all, we're going to go down. And okay. And the area below the sanctuary, all right, steady as she goes, is actually used for, this was the old elevator pit when we had an elevator here. Not tremendously exciting. It's air handlers that provide a lot of the air for the Welcome Center and for the sanctuary and for the Welcome Center. Hot water heaters, and it's the crypt. And a sump pump, occasionally a rodent or two. There you go. So now we're going to go back up and we're going to go around and we'll look at the boutique in the tomb. Then we're going to go up to the sanctuary and talk for a minute or two. So follow me. There's Greg Bannerman, ladies and gentlemen. Thank him so much for all that he does for Park Street Church. And follow me. Trash room, there's trash in there. One little known fact about Park Street Church is in some of the areas like the boutique and the tomb, these areas are actually not in the church at all. They're underneath the sidewalk of Park Street. So we'll take a walk in here. And in the boutique is where we keep Sexton Church supplies, walkie-talkies and mops and buckets and paper towel and toilet paper. It's a very exotic French name, but it means toilet paper. So we'll head on out. The tomb, I really can't even go in there. It has floor cleaning equipment in there. You can't walk in. It's truly not as exciting. It's called the tomb now, so you've always wondered what that is. And I'll just stop here to share with you the work that the ministries with City Engagement and Thursday Night Outreach have been doing throughout the course of this whole COVID-19 pandemic. They have recognized that the need of the homeless, those folks in Boston that are facing homelessness right now, their plight is really, really dire. Just the inability to have any kind of nutrition, any kind of meal, any kind of adequate services. So Thursday Night Outreach, all the folks there, and City Engagement have really been working hard. So this is 2 tons of protein drinks, which are being put together along with care packages to help provide some nourishment for the homeless folks during this time. So if you have a chance to support their ministries, please do. Support our church through their ministry. And if you have a chance to pray for the work that TNO and other folks are doing around. So, but for now, we're going to go back up to the sanctuary. Some of you folks might know this, but Park Street Church, I mentioned last time, was first brick was laid in 1809, and we worshipped in a finished building in 1810. I was going somewhere with that. Just forgot what I was going to talk about, but I'll take this opportunity for a joke. How long did Cain hate his brother? As long as he was able. So now we're entering the church. You all know it, but very few of you have been in the church for a period of time. But I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the history of how this whole building was built. Peter Banner was the architect, and when he designed the church, the next time that you're in, and Lord willing, that'll be soon. The next time that you're in, though, take a look through. And if you look through these windows over here, you would see the Boston Common. Imagine in 1809 that's cow pasture land. Cows are grazing. And if you look out of these windows, you would see the Granary Burial Ground. Peter Banner really designed the entire church with the intention that this church ought to be in the location between the life that you're living now and the life that we're all going to be going to for eternity. So he really saw the architecture, the placement of this church as being something that could kind of speak spiritually to this church as well. So we'll come on in. And I thought I would just take a little bit of an opportunity to talk about something that I know some folks have really not ever thought too much about, or you've thought about, maybe you've wondered, but these marble plaques that you see right up here on the right and left of the front of the sanctuary, if you look, you'll actually see that a lot of them died in the Civil War, all of them. Some of them died far away from here, Fredericksburg, Maryland, or North Carolina, Falmouth, Virginia, and you might not know the stories of these people that were connected here. Not all of them were members, but some of them were. And actually, the first person that we have right here, Lieutenant Edgar Newcomb, and I'll read it to you because you can't really zoom in that well. 19th Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment, wounded at the Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. December 13th, died 7 days later, December 20th, aged 22 years. All of these gentlemen were gentlemen that were under the chaplain command of Andrew Leet Stone. Andrew Stone was our senior pastor during the Civil War, and he actually left the pulpit because he realized that a lot of folks were going to be dying on battlefields far away and never really know the saving knowledge of Christ. So he actually became the chaplain for the Massachusetts Volunteer 45th Regiment. He marched with the men, and a lot of these men are men that just impressed themselves upon his life. And I thought I would just share a little bit because we actually have the testimony of the first person here, Lieutenant Edgar Newcomb. When he first entered this church, he was 15 years old. At that time, what people would have to do to sort of qualify for membership for Park Street Church is that they would have to present their testimony of faith before an examining committee. And that examining committee would say, yep, we think it's a legitimate testimony, or they'd say, well, we have some lingering questions, and they would be invited back a second time. And Edgar Newcomb, as he is 15 years old, now just try to imagine a 15-year-old boy, Edgar Newcomb, Writing says, I am 15 years old, was religiously educated, never had feelings of opposition. I hope I became a Christian 3 years ago. I was interested by attending meetings at Dr. Stowe's church. I felt that I was a sinner. Attended the meetings 3 times a week, and in a few days experienced a change. Was distressed and could not think of anything else. Change was chiefly through prayer. The excitement passed away and I began to lose interest, and for 2 years lived carelessly. I prayed still, but not from the heart, then revived again. Have daily private prayer. I have temptations and feel my need of watchfulness. I have besetting sins, but I pray against them. I pray for the direction and the choice of a profession for life. They gave him a favorable standing and asked him to come back again, and he had said, written on his second appearance before the examining committee, I have thought and prayed much about this step, and I feel encouraged in it. Think I am not deceived, because Christ said, Him that cometh unto me I will in no ways cast out. I know I came to him, and I believe his promise. I have hope in prayer and the assistance of Christian friends. I have no love for such amusements such as the theater. I speak with my impenitent friends on the subject of religion. And when I started to read this testimony, I realized that this is the same gentleman that is dying in the Battle of Fredericksburg, not even 7 years later, 5 days before Christmas. And it just kind of made the history of this church come alive in a different way. And one of the other ways in which the history really came alive was to read the letters of Andrew Leach Stone. He wrote them back, and some of the letters that he wrote back to the Women's Benevolent Society, the oldest society from this church, and it's actually still going. If you know Judy Borgen and Turd Larson, and there's just a whole bunch of wonderful saints that are all there. He wrote a letter back to them in 1862, and if you don't mind my reading this letter, this is what he said. My dear people, to Park Street Church, we are beginning to get rested from terrible fatigue and the exhaustion of an expedition, though there are still scores of men who go about limping the camp, crippled with blistered feet, rheumatic ankles, and stiff hip joints. A march of 150 miles through marsh and swamp, sleeping in the damp ground and beneath the open sky, and carrying so many pounds of weight is no holiday affair. But we are nearly now to brave it all over again, and probably the order will come down from another movement. The feet give out first in the march. Our men were disabled in their feet before they gave out anywhere else. Not a few lay down by the roadside, unable to take another step in the anguish of blistered toes and heels. The ambulances picked them up and helped them along a few miles, and then they had to foot it again. Some of them were obliged to throw away their shoes and walk in their stocking feet, in this part of the way on frozen ground through icy pools. Yet there was but little complaining. The men set their teeth firmly and kept on. But you may judge how grateful your timely gift, which actually the WBS would have knitted for them, which has just arrived, of fresh stockings and mittens. Oh, the new soft flannel, clean and nice to have these bruised and torn and weary feet. What a welcome and what thanks go on the burdened air towards all those kind and busy fingers in the midst of you that wrought so well for the soldiers. I can no longer speak of scanty communications from Park Street. I have had a deluge of greetings within a day or two, a kindly, precious deluge. Young hearts and strong hearts blending in affectionate salutations. Thank you, one and all. I wish I could write to everyone a separate letter in reply, but with my new duties of hospital visiting since our battles and writing duty letters for the disabled soldiers, and on behalf of the dead, I must content myself and ask you all to be contented with this general acknowledgement. One pleasant incident of our return march was that nearly 50 slaves of both sexes and of all ages accompanied the army to Newbern. Thought we might as well come along while we can, they said. They were cunning little faces looking over their mothers' shoulders, and younger faces yet nestled against their chests, their faces often much whiter than the bosom. And sturdy little pilgrims trudged along, holded by ragged dresses and stumbling about under horses' feet and wheels of artillery and soldiers' legs, but always keeping right side up. Everybody was tender and considerate of these dark Israelites of the Exodus. They slept at night by their campfires, and from our scanty rations had something held to their lips. We did not fare luxuriously ourselves, often going with a cracker or two, a piece of sweet chocolate, and a drink of cold coffee all day long. And our dusky fellow travelers fared as well as we did. You may remember that in my account of the Battle of Kingston, I spoke of an old meeting house upon which we emerged from the wood and from under a sharp musketry fire. As soon as we marched and had passed the meeting house in our advance, it became a hospital. I went in to see if any of our 45th Regiment was there. There were dead and dying rebels lying on the floor. There were strangers from other loyal regiments. I went from one to another, turning up the faces of the dead in search of friends and saying a word or two to the dying if they were still conscious. I noticed one pale, slender boy, evidently dying in extreme agony, over whom an officer was bending and striving to do something to support and comfort him. As I hurried past to the door, still looking for our wounded boys, many of whom had not yet received surgical attention, the officer lifted his head and said, "Is there a chaplain who can pray with this dying boy?" I turned back instantly. The poor boy was writhing in pain, and from his lips burst a single word with deep, full emphasis: "Mother." I said, "Do you want me to pray with you?" The eyes turned upon me with such wild eagerness, and one hand clutched at mine, and he said, "Yes, pray, quick." I said, "I want you to pray." "Oh, I can't, he broke forth. I said, "I will teach you a short prayer that you can pray yourself." Oh, how the eager eyes still hung upon my lips, and I began, he snatching the words from me and repeating them after me. God, be merciful, merciful. His voice was loud and full and most intense with earnestness, and then he added of himself the next two words, "to me," and then paused. I said, "Don't you know the rest?" "Oh," said he, "I am so wicked." "But that is what you're going to put in now." "Is it?" "Yes, put that in, a sinner," he said, as though his soul went forth upon the utterance. "There," said I, "can you hold that, rest on that? It saved the man who prayed it in the New Testament. If you will hold there a sinner resting on God's mercy in Jesus Christ, all will be safe." His breath had almost gone, and sharp convulsions shook him, but he went through the brief prayer, and with more inexpressible tenderness and solemnity, and then with gasps told me his name and home, John Russell, Plainville, Connecticut, and then threw both arms around my neck and drew my face down to his. I thought he wanted to whisper something in my ear and turn my ear to his mouth, but it was not that. He wanted to kiss me, and held my lips, which I freely gave him, close against his own, and in that embrace breathed, I think, his last. As his arms relaxed, I rose and left with him and his friend, just catching one parting look of a peaceful, calm, and colorless face. I felt that one quick scene had paid me for all the toil and hardship of a chaplain's life. It was worth all the sacrifice we had made in bringing such a scene to pass. And there were others not unlike those of which I could tell you, some of which I shall at some time speak. That was one of the most weary days to me, and I was never more heavily exhausted than of its close. The lifting and bearing through marsh and wood, so many lands. The excitement of battle, the strain upon my sensibilities were all exhausting. But I would like to see the mother of that young Russell and tell her of her dying son, and bear to her the legacy of that last kiss. I must close now in haste. Sincerely, A.L. Stone. So there's remarkable history. Every little name that you see around here represents a soul for Christ and an incredible life lived. And there's more information about this in our archives. There's more information about this in our archives, which are at the Congregational Library. If you have a chance to go to congregationallibrary.org, it's just a treasure trove of some of the most incredible information. But that's just something that just now you know a little bit more about a name that you've always looked at and never thought too much about. One of the things I also wanted to share with you, we're done with the long reading of long letters, is this kind of show you that right now, this is sort of what we look like as a church. We are a church, of course. We resemble a production studio. Greg can turn around, and there's actually cables that go around to the fabled Skinner cam, which is a camera mounted right here by the organ to be able to show Nathan Skinner playing the organ. Nobody is really allowed in here on a Sunday except for those people that are really integral to running the whole thing. So a couple of sound people. You've seen the choir that's spaced out a little bit, and then the people, the elder and the minister and the attending minister as well. Other than that, nobody's allowed. And we desperately want that to change. And the Lord will open up that door in his own time, and of course, we want to be prudent. But right now, we're very, very busy trying to do all this. So we're going to continue on our way through the church, but right now we also have our morning service set up and also our evening service set up. We normally take the time to put everything away, but right now, since we're just kind of having it out all the time, we have left out the drum kit and things like that. So, hey, I have a question for you. Why did Joseph fall into a well? Well, he couldn't see that well. Well, his brothers also pushed him, of course. Well, wells, it's a deep subject. So, one of the things a lot of you folks have maybe done, but maybe some of you guys have not done, is if you've not gone through this door, this is one of the great aha moments of this church, when you realize that when you walk through the door, you're actually walking through into the nursery. which is kind of neat. And I will just say a word about this. I have 3 lights turned on right now. We have not turned on the heat for a good long while. The lights are all left off. All of building number 2, we've taken all of our heating systems and we've kind of taken those down. We are trying to be the best stewards of your gifts and your tithes and your offerings as possible. We are turning literally everything off except for basic life support systems and that which is really necessary and critical to running the church right now. So we realize the awesome responsibility that we have to be able to squeeze every penny out for the facility, so we're spending as little as possible while these buildings are being unoccupied. So thank you guys for trusting that to us. The sextons and I and Steve McGaff, we view it as an awesome privilege and as a terrible responsibility as well. We take it very, very seriously. So thanks for putting your trust in us. We're going to take a ride up in the elevator now, which you guys have all been up in. And the last time we were able to watch the steeple from the inside out, now we're going to get a chance to take a look at the steeple from the outside, looking at the steeple. Maybe some of you guys haven't been on the roof of the church, but we'll take a walk up there and we'll look at the roof of the church. Make sure everything is in good working order. Before I open up this door though, how did Darth Vader know what Luke got him for Christmas? He felt his presence. Get it? He felt his presence. That's for you, Julie. All right. We have mechanical rooms filled with mechanical stuff. It's kind of all here. Most all of it is turned off right now. We'll come back through here. And now we're on the roof of 1 Park Street. If you come on over, you get a really great view of the steeple. And Elizabeth Alonis and Julie Boyd and other folks are currently working on our new website, sort of behind the scenes. You'll see that rolling out in a little bit. Some of that's going to be footage that we had from the Park Street Arts film crew hired a drone, and they were able to zoom around the steeple. And it's pretty fabulous looking footage. So, not too many people get a chance to be out here though. It's kind of neat. And having left the church, I have to say, Sundays without you guys here, they're always a little sad. Of course, the day before is a sadder day. Anyways, let's continue. State House Dome. It's gold. It's actually 24 karat gold. Was not always gold. Didn't know if you knew that. For a while, during the Civil War, it was painted sort of a matte gray, but it was not always gold. Okay, we're actually going to walk through this room again. And then we're going to walk over to number 2 Park Street. Now, of course, I had said that the church was built in 1809. That's certainly not all the buildings. 1 Park Street was built in the 70s, and then 2 and 3 Park Street actually were owned before. Number 2 Park Street was owned by Houghton Mifflin. Houghton Mifflin was a giant publishing company, probably the largest publishing company in the world, sort of a while ago. Now they're more known for textbooks and things like that. But 2 Park Street, where we're in now, was actually the home, the world headquarters for Houghton Mifflin. So a lot of wonderful books were actually born at 2 Park Street. Among them was Johnny Tremain Virginia Lee Burton, Mike Mulligan and the Steam Shovel. What else? Curious George, Willa Cather, Roger Tory Peterson's Wild Field Guide to Birds. Oh golly, what else? The first American edition of The Hobbit, of course, was also published in this building. Also, the first edition of Mein Kampf, which is not really the greatest news tidbit. And Winston Churchill's memoirs were the biggest thing that were ever published here, too. The Gathering Storm and things like that. They were actually behind this door. And we're going to go into the missions office for a moment. Again, right now, all the lights are off, all the heat's off. And into this boardroom. And this is the boardroom where all of Houghton Mifflin's books were all published here. One of the recent things that we've been doing too is we've been changing. If you remember the old days when everyone had a chalkboard, and then when we had whiteboards, everyone got rid of chalkboards, and then when people got overhead projectors, they got rid of whiteboards. Well, now Greg, behind the camera right now, has been setting up a lot of these rooms with Zoom capability and conference, which happened not related to COVID-19, but certainly at a most advantageous time as the whole church started to move to having to meet in virtual meetings. So, we're gonna go down to the basement. Not too many of you guys have been down to the basement. We're gonna pass some fire alarm guys. They're working on our fire alarms. Of course, we have to make sure that this whole thing is very, very safe as well. Thank you guys. And we'll go down to the copier room. Copier room. You wanna know why they call it a copier room? I don't know, because there's no copier in it, that's for certain. We did just take the elevator though. You ever wonder, why are elevator jokes so sophisticated and awesome? I think mainly because they work on so many different levels. Let's continue. Light bulbs. I mean, this is where we store all the light bulbs. This has kept you up at night wondering where we store all of our light bulbs. As we have moved everything over to be LED lights, we use this room an awful lot less. We're gonna walk underneath the into here. Another basement room. This is where all of our sprinkler pipes actually go through building number 3, and then they connect all the buildings together. So we have good sprinkler coverage throughout the whole thing. There's a room over here, Jim Lehman, if you know Jim at all, he really wanted me to go into. This room, I don't know what it is. It's the creepiest room in the entire place. Nobody has ever died in it, but we call it the room of death because it's just creepy. It's the lowest spot in the entire church, and it's one creepy room with one creepy light bulb in it. It's just plain old creepy. I have no answer. I believe that there used to probably be a boiler in here, but this room is just kind of terrifying. So, there you go. Jim Lehman, that's for you. All right. And back up again. We'll take a walk into the workshop. A lot of things have to get built around here as well. So in here we have a whole workshop where we're able to work on repairing walls and ceiling and floor and moldings and things like that. So there's actually a lot more space to this church than you ever knew that there was, didn't you? It really is kind of amazing. So at this point, we're going to go over to building number 3, and we'll take a look at number 3. And before we go, I'm just going to ask you, what bear is the most condescending? A panda. Panda, get it? It's not so good when you have to explain it. If we have time, I'll also take you over to the graveyard. We may not have a whole lot of time to do that. The graveyard is owned by the National Park Service. It's not owned by the church, so we don't really have a lot to do there. They're closed because of the pandemic right now. There's a lot of phenomenal and fantastic history there. Crispus Attucks, first African American killed in the Boston Massacre. Mother Goose, John Hancock, Paul Revere, Sam Adams, James Otis. All of them are buried there. And it's, when you look at all the gravestones, it's tremendously overcrowded. There's just gravestones everywhere. In fact, people are dying to get in there. And now we're going to go to one of the last spots here. We're in number 3 Park Street. Number 3 Park Street and number 2 Park Street were purchased at the same time. And number 3 Park Street used to be the Warrensburg Cooperative Savings Bank. So we purchased it from them. When we purchased it from them, we remodeled the entire thing. However, there are just certain parts of a bank that you really can't remodel as hard as you try. And the main one is the safe. How many churches have an actual bona fide bank vault? Not too many. This is actually one of my proudest moments of working here. This used to be locked, and there was an index card here that was completely whited out, and you could barely make out faint numbers. And every time that I used to come by, I would try to make out the numbers, and then I would try one of not one but 2 tumblers that you have to operate. And one day, I was able to crack it, and I screamed because I was so excited. In fact, I still want to scream because I'm super excited. You know, not as rich as Egypt. Of course, you know, during the Pharaoh's day with the Nile, I mean, the banks were overflowing. So, but it's still kind of awesome. This door is probably, I'd say, over 5,000 pounds. And in it, you have a time lock and all sorts of crazy doodads. And this is where we keep all of our financial information. So, offerings and accounts payable and receipts for giving and all sorts of wonderful things. So all those things are here, which is it's a great treasure to have here. But I'm always super careful because this door is super heavy. In fact, we have not one vault, but we have 2 vaults, which is pretty bold and sassy for a church. In fact, you want to know what does a bold and sassy pepper do? It gets jalapeno business. There you go. Now we're in the archives. A lot of our archives, the most valuable documents that we have were brought over to the Congregational Library, which is just up around the corner at 14 Beacon Street. But the rest of it is all of our archives that didn't make it over there, and there's a lot of incredible information. Over here we have virtually every letter written from every missionary back to the church. I can't even imagine, if you had the opportunity to go through those letters, the kind of history that you would discover about our church. Every bulletin that we have going back hundreds of years and books. One of the things that Greg has been involved in, who again is the fabulous guy behind the camera, is taking, this represents one small amount of all the digital and magnetic information that we have from our services that go back to Ockenga and Tom's and Fisher and right up to the present day. A lot of these things are held here as long as we've been keeping magnetic or digital copies. And we're also in the process of taking all these things, which are just old reel-to-reel tapes of a sermon from 1958, and turning them into digital copies so that future generations of folks are able to be guided and inspired still by the preaching of Ockenga and Paul Toms and all the wonderful forefathers of this church that sort of went before us. If anyone really had an interest in wanting to help us out. This is phenomenal. This is just like digging your hands into gold. The history is absolutely rich. The letter that I read upstairs in the sanctuary a little bit ago by Andrew Leet Stone, he actually, he is right here. And, no. I don't even know where he is. Anyways, an original old daguerreotype of him is kept here. And it's a pretty amazing thing to see. But, well, I should have dug it out beforehand. I can't find it. This information, though, has to be sorted and collated and gone over so that missionaries and future folks at this church, we don't really even know how the Lord is going to use this, but there's just a tremendous amount of information. If anyone has an interest and a real appetite to want to help out with archives, would you please contact me? Please contact Greg Van Erman. We would consider it a tremendous answer to prayer to have you join us. These are things that missionaries had brought back from the field, and these are offering boxes that used to hold the offering for the church 150 years ago, 200 years ago. This is actually, it's a foot warmer. You'd put the hot things in, like hot stones, and then you would carry it in, and you'd put it in your pew right next to your feet so that your feet wouldn't go numb, because that's what the heat was at that time. So, we none of us really know what's going to be happening in the next couple months. We pray that life is going to be returning to sort of a normal. We would love very dearly for our Freedom Trail Ministries to be able to start up again. We have traditionally welcomed 45,000 people through our church, and they have shared prayer requests, and they have come to faith, and they have amazing stories and come from virtually every corner of the globe. We hope that they're able to come back again, but we're so grateful for this opportunity to be able to share our rich history to you. Of course, the richest history are the histories that are all hidden in Christ, and for each one of you and what you're doing in your neighborhoods and your homes and your families and things, and we know that this is a tremendous cost to all of you. So again, I said it last time, I'll say it again, but if there's a real need among any of you, if there's a matter for prayer that we can help pray for, or need we can help meet, please, for heaven's sakes, just let us know. We'd consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to pray for you and help you during this time. And the last thing is, as much fun as this has been, it was like super fun to do this Steeple tour, and this has been super fun. This is not nearly a tenth of a fraction as much fun as being able to have you all here. And so we just pray that we're all able to be reunited in body as we are in spirit. And the last thing I will say is just one last joke for my friend Julie Boyd. She actually gave this to me, so credit goes to her. What does a clock do when it's hungry? It goes back 4 seconds. It goes back 4 seconds. See, again, you have to say it right. So Julie would have done a better job telling it. We love you guys all from Park Street Church. This is Rich Elliott signing off. If there are other phenomenal things you really want us to explore or chase down, we're not like ghost hunters or anything like that, but we'll do our best. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you all, and have a wonderful day.